I've said it before, there are loads of gorgeous products out there for us to use with our polymer clay, but sometimes it's really satisfying to just be able to make it ourselves and have the designs that we make with them be completely original. Today I'm going to show you how to use your extruder to make really cool texture sheets for polymer clay. Hey there creative people, Sandy here. Welcome to another Friday Findings video at keepsakecrafts.net. Here are just a couple of the texture sheets that I made using extruded polymer clay. It's so simple to do and you really get a cool effect. See this one? Look at that. Isn't that awesome? And I made this all myself with scrap clay. So you can press in sheets. You can press in blobs. You can even use them in layers. Just so much fun and so cool. And I'll just, let's see, I'm going to go back to this one. I love these spirals. And now we have so much going on there, so much interest. Just rub that with a little mica powder to bring out the texture. So this is just one small example of how you can do this. So let me show you how it's done. Of course, what you'll need is an extruder. I have the Lucy Clay Check Extruder, but any extruder that you have will do. The first thing you'll want to do is roll out some clay as your backing sheet. This is just a bunch of scrap clay that I mixed up. I did mix it thoroughly. I didn't leave it streaky because I felt it was just easier to see what was going on if I had solid colors. This is a fun chance to go through your collection of dyes and try different things. So these polymer clay strands that I used in this texture were made using this dye. This is from Lucy Clay, but you can find similar ones in other sets. You can kind of see that on the cross section. They're just maybe 1/8 inch rounds. And then this one was made using the triangle. And all I did here was I twisted the triangle and got a different look. I think I really like the waves best. So I thought I would try something a little bit different. I'm using this clover here. And you do them all the exact same way. You just lay your clay on your sheet. You can make straight lines, you can make wavy lines, diagonals, whatever you want to have for a pattern. If you're interested in the supplies I used, click on the little eye or the tag in the upper right of the video or the link in the description box to go to my blog post where I always have a complete supply list with links to products. I think this one will make a really interesting deep texture because I have these 3 kind of like rounds built up on top of each other. And you just carry on like this, building up your texture sheet. The great thing about making your own is that you can make it whatever size you need. I tend to work in jewelry, so I don't need anything that's really a big scale. And you just keep going like that. Now for this one with the rounds, at some point in these waves, when these waves got a little deep, I just added spirals, and there's always those inevitable little triangles of space that are left over, and I filled them with little balls of clay. So when you press your polymer clay sheet in, you get the reverse, so you get the indent. Now if you want a texture like this, all you have to do is use silicone molding putty and make a texture out using this, and then you'll have the positive and the negative of your design. I really like this with the spirals. Whoops. Yeah, you do want to use a little bit of release, a little bit of Armor All. It's good that you get the negative, and I think that's just so interesting. It's also better for your texture sheet to use a release so it doesn't get raw polymer clay stuck on it, which could discolor your next project. Another thing to try is, like I did on the triangles, is twisting and see what you get. Now look at that. That is so cool. You could actually do a faux knitted texture. I've twisted this one the left hand towards me, the right hand away from me. You gotta kind of squash those ends down. And then I'll twist this one the other way, the right hand towards me and the left hand away from me. Just so that the twists are going in the opposite direction. Try to get them twisted about the same amount and then lay them next to each other. And if you did rows and rows of this, you would end up with a knitted texture, which again you can do the negative or the positive of. And you can try this with all different shapes. If you try it with squares, you get the look of sort of a wrought iron railing kind of look. Similarly with the triangles, kind of a wrought iron railing. Not to sound like a cheesy ad, but wait, there's more. There really is so much more you can do with this. Here I have a heart die, and I extruded a long strip of heart clay, and then I baked it in that shape. I didn't want to cut it with my blade before baking because it's too easy to squish it. But if you chill it and you have good technique, maybe you could. But all I'm going to do is cut a whole bunch of little hearts. I've used a nice, thick, sturdy blade to cut a bunch of hearts. I have another base sheet of scrap clay. Just put on a little liquid clay because we're going raw clay to baked clay. Then you can lay your little shapes however you want. You can make any pattern you want with them. I just thought this would be really cute. Now you'll notice that these are not all the same height, and I think that's kind of the charm of this, is that they won't be the same height. I mean, if you wanted them to be the exact same height, you'd probably want to cut your extrusion before you bake it. You might want to freeze it, let it chill, use some kind of slicing tool that will help you cut really consistent sizes, thicknesses. But you get the idea here that you can lay these out and make yourself a texture sheet in any shape you want. And like I said, I kind of like the, that's maybe a little rough, the charm of these all being different heights. I think you could have a lot of fun with that. Alright, let me spritz my sheet of clay with some Armor All and let's see how that looks. I'm not sure if these are going to shift on me because they're not baked yet, but I really want to see how it looks. Oh, isn't that fun? They're just all different depths. I obviously missed that one. But so you can have yourself a sheet of any shapes. Now here's my collection of dies. This was an idea I got from Ginger Davis Allman to put them in a coin book. It's fantastic because you can just flip through it and see what you have. These brightly colored ones are all from Lucy Clay. But you could have this as an extrusion and have a whole sheet of, how about X's and O's? That would just be a texture sheet. A star. You could fit pieces together and leave gaps and kind of have the reverse be the texture. You could just have dots, squares, diamonds, really whatever shape you want. You just kind of start looking at these in different ways. Now obviously this I did with a thicker, like about an 1/8 inch, 2 or 3 millimeter round die. You could definitely do it with thinner ones. I just didn't feel like spending the time it would take to do it. But then you would get a lot of really fine detail in your texture. So any of these shapes you could really have a lot of fun with. So use your imagination, and it doesn't have to be all the same thing. It could be hearts alternating with other things. Once you start thinking, you won't be able to stop thinking of different ways that you can make your own texture sheets. But I have another idea for you. If you're a regular and you're here every week, I hope you'll consider supporting this channel on Patreon. It makes a difference and is a huge factor in whether or not this channel stays on YouTube. Many thanks to those of you who are already supporting me on Patreon. I really appreciate it, and it's so encouraging to me to see your support. And don't forget that patrons have the opportunity to get up to 2 bonus videos every month. Using that same heart extrusion that we baked, this is a thicker sheet of clay. This is rolled out on the thickest sheet of my pasta machine. The others were rolled out on the thinnest because I didn't think it was necessary to have it rolled out really thick. You can just press that into the clay, and you can make yourself little light marks to make them even and perfectly straight if you want. And when you bake this and impress in this, you'll have the hearts raised up. Again, you can do this with any extruded shape, rounds, and make a sheet full of polka dots, dots of different sizes, anything, triangles, X's, O's, any of these shapes you have. Hexagons, that would be fun to make something that sort of looks like a honeycomb just by using these and pressing them in carefully as they line up. So let me extrude a little bit of this. I have on here a hexagon plate. I don't know if you can see that. Let me extrude a bit of that. There's my hexagon extrusion. Now I'm just going to try to cut fairly consistent thicknesses, but again, not worrying about it too much. Just keep them pretty close. And we can do something similar as we did with the hearts. Yeah, this is, you can see these are wonky. They're not, oh, that one's a pretty good hexagon. Maybe it's just my end. Take a little time, line these up really well. You can do this with any shape. Now you're asking, what's the difference between doing this and then baking the hearts? Well, what you can do at this point is add another layer to this by using tools. Any of your ball tools or any shape, a needle tool, anything you want, and add, again, another level of texture. So I could use this little divot. Remember that when you bake it and impress your clay into it, you'll end up with the reverse. So you'll have texture on texture, or you can just use a ball tool. The nice thing about this is that you have the precision of the extruded shape. So rather than rolling logs by hand or trying to cut things by hand and then it's really imprecise, you have that shape or this shape or whatever shape just right from the extruder, and then you can go ahead and take that and make your own spin on it. And I think like something like these ripples just has so much more impact because these are all very consistent in size, but then what you do with them and change them up is what adds the interest. So I hope you take this idea and run with it. Happy creating.